So the last couple of Disney movies that I've been reviewing, not counting Encanto because that's their most recent film, have been pretty difficult to stomach. Some more than others, and that's putting it as nicely as possible for Chicken Little. But I'm happy to say that from this point on, as we reach down the final five, we have nowhere to go but up. Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for Bolt, which came out in 2008, and depending on which way you look at it, it's either the end of the post-Renaissance or it's the beginning of the revival era. In fact, before I get into the plot summary of this movie, I actually wanted to make sure where this movie lined up. So I got on Twitter to ask a bunch of Disney fans, hey, where do you consider to be the first film in the revival era? Because some people say Bolt. I usually go for Princess and the Frog, but I've also heard arguments for Tangled. A couple of my critic friends like Rachel Wagner and Sean Chandler have said Princess and the Frog was the start of the revival era, and a lot of people who have replied to that tweet have also said Princess and the Frog. Dave Lee from the YouTube channel Dave Lee Down Under made the best argument for Princess and the Frog when he said that it was the first movie that John Lasseter greenlit once he became chief creative officer at Disney Animation. Because if you remember, back in 2006, Disney acquired Pixar, and part of that deal was that John Lasseter would be chief creative officer for not only Pixar, but Walt Disney Animation. And with Bolt, he was involved with this movie, but the movie did start going into production long before that acquisition and before he became a part of it. So I think it's safe to say, based on the feedback that I've gotten and based on my personal opinions on the movie, that Bolt was the final film in Disney's post-Renaissance era, and Princess and the Frog, which we'll talk about next week, was the beginning of the revival era. So back to Bolt. The plot of this movie is that it follows a dog, voiced by John Travolta, who is the star of this hit TV show about a dog and his owner Penny, who basically try to save the world. They're super spies. Bolt is a super dog, and they try to stop the green-eyed man and save Penny's father. But unfortunately, this show's creator is so hardcore about method acting for the dog that Bolt believes everything that's happening is real. So when Bolt eventually gets lost because he thinks Penny's actually been abducted, he starts to get a reality check that yeah, his whole life was a complete lie. But of course, Bolt has a difficult time believing that, and when he travels with a cat named Mitten and a hamster who happens to be a big fan of Bolt's named Rhino, he starts getting a reality check that, yeah, there's more to life than just being a super dog, which he really wasn't in the first place. So this came out in November of 2008. By this point, I have seen WALL-E, I have officially exited my anti-animation phase, and for some reason I just didn't really care for this movie. And I can actually give you a reason why I wasn't super excited about this movie when it was coming out. And that's because while WALL-E opened my eyes to the idea that, yeah, animation is an art form and it's not just for kids stuff, for some reason talking animals was something that I wasn't quite ready to be on board with. And I did see this movie when it came out, so I didn't skip over it. And despite my reservations, I actually found it to be quite charming. And I feel the exact same way about this movie watching it now as an adult as I did back when I saw it in 2008. You can clearly tell that John Lasseter had involvement with this movie because it feels like a Pixar movie at points, right down to the main character Bolt. Because the best way to describe Bolt, the movie, and the character is imagine if you took Toy Story but you remade it from the perspective of Buzz Lightyear. Bolt is so convinced and believes that this spy world that he lives in is real and that he's a super dog that has super barks and can shoot lasers out of his eyes, that it hits hard when he finds out that, yeah, it's all a lie. Very similar to Buzz Lightyear in the original Toy Story, where he's so convinced that he's a space ranger until he gets a reality check. And if I had any criticisms, and this is the only one I really have about the movie, it's that I don't think Bolt is a particularly interesting character. Because he's very similar to Buzz Lightyear in the first Toy Story, I just didn't find him that interesting. And John Travolta's voice performance, while he does a decent job, I just didn't find him to be as charismatic as Tim Allen's voice work as Buzz Lightyear. And that's not to say that I didn't care about the character, because admittedly there are scenes where Bolt is trying to adapt to being a normal dog that work. It's very charming, it's very heartfelt, and I think it just comes from the overall nature that we as humans have, where we just love dogs. So that aspect definitely helps, but compared to some of the other characters in this movie, Bolt is kind of the most boring. You have Susie Essman as a cat named Mittens, who gets dragged onto this journey because Bolt thinks that this cat is working for the Green-Eyed Man. And just seeing Mittens get dragged into this road trip against her own will, and just arguing with this stupid dog, is hilarious. Like, she's probably the most level-headed character, and definitely the most sarcastic. And then they're also accompanied by a little hamster named Rhino, who is a rabid fanboy of Bolt's. And there were parts where I thought this character was funny, but then there were other scenes where I just found him to be a little obnoxious, where I'm like, okay, you need more of a reality check than Bolt does, because you are obsessed. You are obsessed with this character and this show to the point where you just gotta chill. These two are the main comic relief of the movie, and when you watch it, you can clearly tell that it has a hint of Pixar comedy in it. And it's funny, because Pixar always excels when it comes to their comedic moments. No matter how heartfelt their movies get, Pixar usually nails the comedy. And seeing a bit of that Pixar flavor make its way into this movie certainly helps. I don't really have much else to say about the movie, either positive or negative. I don't have many negatives outside the fact that the main character is the most boring, but at the same time, I really wasn't wowed by this movie. It's very charming, and I'd say it's good but not great. And I have two reasons why I gave it the rating I gave it. For one, while it's very cute, charming, and fun, there's nothing about this movie that really hits me on an emotional level the way other Pixar movies do, especially WALL-E. And the other reason I say that this movie is good but not great is because Disney still has yet to find their voice when it comes to 3D animated films. Between Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, and Bolt, this is the best one, but there's definitely that shadow of Pixar leaning over them. They still have yet to really detach themselves from trying to be like Pixar. So it's a good effort, and I definitely recommend this movie more than the past 4 Disney movies that I've reviewed. But it just didn't blow my mind. I liked it when I was a kid, and I liked it just about as much as I do as an adult. And there you go, that's my review for Bolt. We have finally come to the end of the post-Renaissance, and now we're going to get into the final era of Disney animation with the only 4 movies that I have yet to review. We're starting things off with The Princess and the Frog. And from this point on, with the rest of the Disney movies I have to review, I'm excited to talk about every single one of them. But until we get to Princess and the Frog, I want to know what you guys think about Bolt. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching my review for Bolt. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day, and take care of yourselves.